Hi everyone and welcome to another video. This video has been quite requested because people have picked up on Instagram that I am making my own kombucha instead of buying it in store, which is saving me so much money. If you don't know what kombucha is, it's basically fermented tea, which sounds disgusting, I know, but kombucha has a lot of good bacteria coming from the fermentation process, so it's really good for your gut and your digestion. And with digestion, that is where everything happens. When you eat, good digestion allows you to absorb as many nutrients as possible so that all your bodily functions can, well, function. So what you will need when you are making kombucha is first a SCOBY, which is the thing that actually does the fermentation process. It looks kind of gross, it looks kind of like a jellyfish, but you will definitely need it to make kombucha. You're also going to need tea. This has to be tea with caffeine. I personally use green tea, but you could use black tea or whatever kind of tea that you have. Just make sure that it has caffeine. So chamomile, for instance, will not work. Then you will also need sugar. So before you freak out, there's quite a lot of sugar when you make kombucha, but the SCOBY eats the sugar, so you're actually not drinking the sugar in the ready-made product. Just pointing that out. So those are the three things that you are definitely going to need, but there's also one thing that you need to be aware of. The SCOBY should not come in contact with metal because it can damage the SCOBY over time and eventually kill the SCOBY, which is so sad. I feel like it's my little baby. So with those four things in mind, this is how I make my kombucha. Also, just a disclaimer, I'm not a pro at making kombucha. I've done some trial and error. I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 months and it is going to be a trial and error thing for you as well. This is just how I prefer to do it and how I find that it works for me. So when you make kombucha, you're gonna start out with making your tea. So I have quite a big jug that I use to make my kombucha, hence why I also use quite a lot of water to make my tea. So I use 2 liters of water and about 2 teaspoons of green tea. Boil that up, add in the sugar. I use 1/4 cup of sugar for 2 liters of water, but you could adjust that however you might want and however you find works for you. So then you're going to stir that together, make sure the sugar has dissolved properly into the water, and then you're going to have to wait for the water, well the tea, to cool down. So when your tea is close to being completely cool, that's when you take your old batch of kombucha, because yes, you are going to need some kombucha to make kombucha, which is inconvenient, but that is the reality. You're going to take your kombucha SCOBY and put it in a bowl, and then you're also going to pour a tiny bit of your kombucha into the same bowl as the SCOBY. It doesn't have to be a lot, maybe 1/2 cup, 1/3 cup, something like that. That's just going to help the fermentation process when you are going to make your new batch of kombucha. So when you've taken out your SCOBY, that's when you're going to want to transfer the rest of the old kombucha into your containers. I am using plastic bottles because it's a lot easier. I am using reused plastic bottles from juice and, you know, coconut milk and stuff like that. So then I'll pour my old kombucha into my plastic bottles, however many plastic bottles I feel like I want to use there. Today I'm using 3 just because we're making 3 different flavoured kombuchas. There's also going to be some sort of stringy, disgusting stuff in the bottom of your old batch of kombucha. At this point I don't mind that because we will be able to strain that away later in the process. So then you just wash out your container, make sure that it's clean, nice and clean, and then you'll transfer your cooled tea into your container. Then you'll pour in the tiny bit of kombucha from your old batch that you kept with the SCOBY first, and then you'll put your SCOBY down in your container and cover that, and then that batch is ready and will stand for about 4 to 7 days, depending on the flavor that you want. The longer you let it stay and ferment, the more sour and more vinegary it's going to taste like. If you keep it for shorter in the fermentation process, it's going to be sweeter. Obviously it's going to have a bit more sugar because the Scooby hasn't eaten all of it, but that's just a preference thing, and you can kind of play around and find out what works for you and what you prefer. I tend to leave it for quite a long time because I don't prepare a new kombucha batch until I am kind of starting to get through my old one. So with that one put away, you're still left with your old kombucha batch. So here is my old kombucha batch. I have 3 bottles of the same thing. It's just green tea, sugar, and well, water obviously. So then you can choose to just drink it as it is. You can put it in the fridge and then the whole fermentation process will stop. If you want to flavor your kombucha and carbonate it so that it's kind of sparkly and more soda-like, then keep your eyes peeled. Okay, so to flavor your kombucha, you're going to put fruit into the bottle and close it. Yes, that is going to give it flavor, but that is also going to allow the kombucha to start carbonating. So I am using lemons in one of my batches here. I'll just pop all my lemons into the batch of kombucha. This is quite a large lemon, but I'm using half a lemon, and this is going to make it quite sour, just so you know. The next batch I'm doing is orange. These are green oranges from Spain, I believe. I'll just pop all of them in. That is half a orange. And lastly, I am going to use hibiscus flower. I have dried hibiscus flower. I think that's how you pronounce it. So I'm just going to pop that straight into my bottle, and it's going to give it a lovely red colour. Okay, so I put all my fruits into my bottles and I've closed the lids. Then the next step is to just leave them on the counter for about 3 days. You'll be able to feel after a few days that the plastic bottles, if you're using one, get really hard. So you'll know there's a lot of pressure in there. This is why I'm using plastic bottles and not glass bottles. When that happens, you can just choose to let the kombucha burp by opening the lid and then closing it again if you want it to keep carbonating. If you feel after the first burp that you are ready, you'll just strain out the fruit because it will have continued to ferment as well. So there is probably going to be a tiny little Scooby that has started to form inside the bottle, which is gross, but it's easy to just strain it out. And then you'll end up with your kombucha without any fruit, and it will be ready to serve. Obviously just put it in the fridge then, because it's going to cool down, it's going to be a lot nicer, but the cold is also going to stop the fermentation process completely. You could use whatever kind of fruit you want. I've tried with raspberries, that is a banger, that is so good. I'm not too keen on apples, but if you want to try them, you could do that as well. You could use pears, I've heard people use bananas, which I find very strange. You could try whatever kind of fruit you like, and you could also choose to not carbonate it, or you could choose to carbonate it. You don't have to. So yeah, that is it. Just make sure that you use your tea and your sugar, and make sure that your Scooby does not come in contact with metal, because it will probably kill it, and if not, it's going to damage it over time, and then eventually it will die. I hope I haven't forgotten anything vital information, but if you have any questions, please just leave them below and I'll be happy to answer. So if you are as keen on kombucha as I am, make sure to make this. And as I said, you can find a Scooby online, or you can find it on a lot of like zero waste apps. Olio is a good one. If not, you could ask on like zero waste Facebook groups. There's probably even kombucha Facebook groups in your area, or just free Scooby giveaways, you know. I'm pretty sure that is a thing. I haven't checked, but it probably is. So I'm now gonna put my kombucha on the countertop to carbonate for a few days, and then I will be ready to drink it, and my gut will be happy and healthy, and I can continue having my very extra version of lemon water in the morning. So if you thought this video was helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up because it really helps my channel. As I said, leave a comment below if you want to. You can find me on Instagram as well. And until next time, don't forget to leave me your video suggestions and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.